So it's not just going to be us sitting around sort of like, what is consciousness? We want to look at specifics and sort of derive a more general theory of consciousness from looking at those specifics. I mean, there will be more general discussions, but it's not going to be all weird esoteric stuff.
So yeah, that's a really valid point that we're going to be bringing in, we will be interested in bringing in specific things about how an aspect of someone's occupation, or like what aspect of being employed in a 9-to-5 job, what effect does that have on consciousness? And so it's not bad image. But it's not just going to be about like the actual specific consciousness words, or you know, looking at this from like a psychologist's perspective sort of thing. We want all sides to be tackled, but the sort of the central theme is going to be consciousness. What I aim to do with this think tank, what my hope is for it, is to publish it along with my blog that I'm working on starting up. I bought domain name, and I have someone who's going to be doing background music, helping me do editing, different stuff like that. So I am aiming to take this somewhere fairly serious. But what my aim is to make people feel more comfortable about consciousness and about being alive. Because these subject matters just aren't tackled in individual families, let alone in public.
I don't know. I think that they are tackled in public all the time.
It's just whether or not we're aware of it.
And also whether we do it the right way. And usually the answer is
religion is totally just a thing about consciousness.
Right, and so this is something that I've said for a good while, is that we're all talking about the exact same thing and we don't know it. And we know it in limited fashion, in varying degrees. And so what I aim to do is just be like, okay, piss it. Like we're talking about it literally right here, right now. Let's do this. So that's what I'm excited for. I'm excited for helping people understand consciousness in their own way, and just and not having one person be the speaker. It's going to be a group project for moving the understanding of consciousness forward. And in a sort of Plato-esque fashion, for any of you who aren't familiar with Plato's style of dialogue, he would write everyone's point of view about a discussion, and so it wasn't just like someone was speaking and you got only that perspective. You got to see multiple sides, and so you could take apart and understand the concept on your own and digest it into your own understanding. So that's why I want to have, by the way, as a heads up, we're going to have at least one camera and audio equipment going during the meetings. But that's why I want to have the meetings recorded and edited down for pauses or breaks or whatever. But more or less kept just as short as possible without getting rid of anything, and then publishing them online, is because that way, if someone sees something that they're interested in, they can find out how the group got to that discussion in the first place. So say, 5 meetings, 50 meetings down the road, whatever, where, someone says, oh yeah, it's sort of like, that beach ball theory or whatever, we wouldn't have to go into what the beach ball theory was again. Someone could just go, do a search in the blog or whatever, and it's like, oh, this is where we discussed the beach ball theory. Great, and so then they can get to experience and understand along with the group, as opposed to just one person talking the whole time and trying to cram like some sort of cult or religious idea down someone's throat. So yeah, any questions about what the overall aim of the group is going to be?
We're going to be talking about how we organize and think of consciousness, or I know you mentioned the existentialism and metaphysics, but it's like, to some extent, it's so subjective that it's like what's the aim outside of just a broad discussion of consciousness? I mean, we're talking about an existential view of being able to deal with it, but it's are we trying to, I don't know, what's the goal? Say for this first one.
Right. For this first one, we're just trying to set up a good meeting to establish what we're actually talking about and get a sort of meet and greet and what our actual aim is.
Yeah, I mean, all this meeting is about is I mean, we've been working on this for 15 years. I've been working on it for a couple months with them. So we know what we want to talk about, and we can sort of tell you guys what we want to talk about. If you're interested, you keep going. That's what this is. If you're not interested, then don't.
Oh, I guess that was more of like an objective thing.
Right, no, and that's a good question. You know, I do have my own proper nouns that I've been working on for, you know, describing consciousness. Rachel has been in some classes with me where I'll speak up a good bit. You know, so I do have my own words and theories of describing consciousness, drawing it, diagrams, all sorts of things. But I don't necessarily want it to be about that specifically. I want it to evolve sort of naturally. And if it seems like we're on an idea and we need some sort of conclusion of how to describe that thing, then I might try to chime in and guide it a little bit. But it's not like I want to be, you know, just forcing my own personal philosophy on people.
As far as subjectivity goes, though, I mean, subjectivity always impairs all. So the idea is we come together as a group of people, and that'll make us more objective, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take a bunch of subjective views and that adds up to objectivity.
More objective. We're taking an average, taking a mean.
So objectivity is nothing but the average view is subjective.
No, but we're all humans, so now we're infinitely far apart from one another. You got some problems, you see.
No, I think the subjectivity objectivity thing is what I actually going to keep coming back to because it's something that we read often, but it's in a very nice way. That's something we're going to have to come back to. I personally am a huge fan of the idea that there's something objective out there, but I'm trapped in this subjective view, so I don't know how to say that.
There's something objective,
There's some, I don't
but
know.
it's really hard to see because we are fundamentally subjective creatures.
Necessarily.
Actually, then for this first one, we won't even talk about whether or not there is such a thing as a consciousness or how we can define it.
No. Not yet.
Okay, just, I think,
That's the reason why I was like, where objectively we're going. There's one little thing.
Right.
just the pure nuts and bolts. One of the ways we talked about sort of approaching this subject is, and this worked really well in the philosophy club I put together, and it may not work well here, but we can see, is this is basically just an ongoing theme discussion. Consciousness is the general theme, but within that general theme, there's going to be all these subcategories, like I was talking about earlier, basic economics, psychology, whatever. What I think should happen, and Reed sort of agrees, is one person chooses to present on a subject matter. They tell the group what the subject is. If everyone's like, no, I'm just not interested in that, we don't present on it. But assuming that the group likes this subject, thinks it's interesting, that person takes responsibility for giving a presentation the following week. Any reading material that will be involved in the presentation has to be posted online by Monday or Tuesday, so people have a chance to read it. Then the person presents whatever day it is. I was thinking Friday because that's the night, but whatever day it is, the person presents quick presentation. This is not like a 2-hour long presentation. 20-minute presentation, then open it up to discussion. And the rest of the time is spent on that topic, discussion. By the end of that meeting, if there are questions that haven't been answered, the following meeting is dedicated to those questions. If any questions are answered, we can talk.
There's two things I'd add to that. One, I was reminded about the word philosophy. This is not a philosophy club, it is a think tank. We want to keep this open to all majors, all groups, all types. There may be philosophical theme to it, simply because we're talking about consciousness and that's what philosophy is. But, you know, it's not a philosophy